I'm going to start by reading a little anecdote from a TCK. This is after she goes home and people are asking her questions. She's meeting people, and classically, Americans like to ask the question, where are you from and what do you do? And the where are you from is usually, well, she'll explain. So, where are you from? Like most other TCKs, when someone asks Erica that question, her internal computer starts in search mode. What does this person mean by from? Is he asking my nationality, or maybe it's where were you born? Does he mean where are you living now? Or where did you come from today? Or does he mean where do your parents live now, or where did you grow up? Actually, does he even understand the complicated question he just asked me, or care? Is he simply asking a polite, let's make conversation about something while we stand here with shrimp on our plates, or is he actually interested? Erica decides what to answer by how she perceives the interest of the person who asked, or what she does or doesn't feel like talking about. If the new acquaintance seems more polite than interested, or if Erica doesn't want a lengthy conversation, she gives the safe answer. During college, she simply said Wisconsin. Now she replies Dayton. It's the where I'm living now answer. It goes on for a while explaining how she determines how and when to give more information. So, oh, they're actually interested. They asked another question. This is where I'm living now. Oh, so then where were you before? Well, I lived in this place while I was getting my undergrad. Oh, so then where did you grow up? And as they ask more and more questions, then it shows more interest, and the TCK is more and more willing to actually share about their story. So, as I said, I'm Sarah Boulder. I am not actually holding a PhD in missionary kids or anything. However, I am a missionary kid. I grew up in Albania in the organization Frontiers. Was there until I was 14 or 15, then transitioned back to the States for a year, and then transitioned back again to Albania for 2. And got my undergrad in psychology in the U.S. University of Portland, and now I'm here working for Walk the World, which is the organization that's doing the teen conference next door. So yeah, and I'm delighted to be here and rub shoulders with other people that care about missions and care about missionary kids. It's not every day that I get to rub shoulders with people that have similar delights in the nations as I do. So, thanks for coming. So, missionary kids, come and take a seat. So, what is the definition of a TCK? Does anybody know what
third culture kid? I'm also new kids.
Yes, welcome. TCK is third culture kid. Does anybody know what that means or how it intersects with missionary kid?
First culture is their parents' culture.
Right, yeah.
Okay, the second culture is where did I grow up, and that could be many, many cultures.
Yeah.
But they're neither there nor here. They're a blend, so they're in some nebulous third culture.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm referring a lot to this book. This is a book that I think the first edition came out sometime in the 90s, if I'm right, and this is the most recent edition, which starts including cross-cultural kids. I'll talk about that. But you're right, TCKs are third culture kids. They have developed a third culture within themselves that's an amalgamation of several cultures. Since they're the leading authority on third culture kids, I'll be reading their definition, which is a traditional third culture kid is a person who spends a significant part of his or her first 18 years of life accompanying parents into a country or countries that are different from at least one parent's passport country or countries due to the parent's choice of work or advanced training. So that means that we are talking about missionary kids just because we're at a missions conference, but that means that we're talking about military brats as well. And who else? Military brats, diplomats, kids. There's happening a lot with people that are just moving internationally for business. and they bring their kids with them, and it can mean that they moved overseas when they were 1 month old or 2 months old, as soon as they could fly and have a passport, then they were international, or it might mean their parents got a job when they were 15 or 16, and now since dad has that job or mom has that job, then we're moving, and I hope that you enjoy saying goodbye to all your friends. Yeah, so it can be a variety of things. What we're not covering today are cross-cultural kids. So they expanded this definition to realize that TCKs, third culture kids, are a specific kind of cross-cultural kid. So we also have refugees, immigrants, international students. First generation immigrants is a complicated thing in itself. There's a whole variety of cross-cultural experience that can happen during your upbringing. Even just your parents are from 2 different cultures, so you're getting a whole lot of Germany from one dad, and from your mom, you're getting a lot of lackadaisical, a little more easygoing, maybe Brazilian. And so then the time priorities and things like that, you're getting a lot of mixed signals, and it ends up being that you're across a couple different cultures. So those are CCKs. TCKs are a kind of CCK. Are we all tracking? Yeah. Great. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is identity. So did you struggle at all with trying to figure out, okay, where am I actually from? What country should I say? Am I American?
Well, the question, where are you from, is a very complicated question.
Where did you grow up?
Which
yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so I can talk a little bit about identity. You just saw, you noticed that that's the calculation that she was talking about earlier. You're trying to decide what is the answer I'm going to give to this particular time. When this question class, okay, so the verbiage. This is why one brings a second hand to these events. So the word we're going to use is host country and passport country. So, just to give you a picture of how identity confusion can happen. Does everybody read this, or do I need to rewrite it bigger down here? Hi, welcome. Come and take a seat. Join our circle. Everybody see?
Yeah, thanks.
Are you guys okay? You want to go? All right. So, host country is however many countries you are staying in that do not match your parents' culture. So, for me, my host country was Albania. My passport country, based on my accent, is America, okay? So, in my host country, I look different. Albania is in Eastern Europe. Everybody is short and dark-haired. I am neither of those things. So I look different, right? But my thinking is pretty much the same, actually. I have some influence between my parents, but I'm also growing up thinking that everything is family-oriented. You have the grandparents, the parents, the kids, and if those kids have a kid, all in the same 2-bedroom apartment. You stay together. Nursing homes, never. It's just, there's some thinking that is in my head that's very stuck because I grew up in Albania. Speaking depends on the kid's experience. For the most part, it's the same. I'll go into the complexities of a TCK's experience, but for the most part, they've learned the local language. So I joke like an Albanian. I turn into a very overly dramatic person when I'm speaking Albanian because that's how you communicate. It's not just the words of the language, it is the over the top, you're just really excited. That's not how I speak in English, in case you guys haven't already picked up on that. passport country. So I land in the middle of nowhere, Montana, my sophomore year of high school, Grandpa's Ranch, 15 minutes outside of Colstrip, where there's one four-way stop and one subway. And I look the same. I fit in. Everybody's like, oh yeah, so you're new. Yeah, I'm new. Well, where are you from? Albania. Oh yeah, Albany.
Yes.
No, country. I don't know if you've heard of it. And so you're an international student. You're one of the exchange students. Not that either. So I look the same, right? I walk the halls. Nobody knows that I am not like them, right? But I think wildly differently.
Yes.
And of course, again, you move from LA to that same place in Montana. You're going to have similar disjuncture, but like a different culture, different country, to a place where nobody has left the state. I think differently. I speak the same. I do, but at the same time, I also speak Albanian. And what does lit mean? And I don't know what you're talking about when you are talking about friends. Like what friends? So you guys all pay attention to this one friend group? Oh no, it's a TV show. Okay, so then what's going on? Why are we talking about Phoebe? Who is she again? Oh, you gotta watch it. How? Where am I going to watch it? You guys have been watching it growing up. I don't know about Sesame Street. So, same difference. So you see, when I'm in Albania, I walk around and kids stare at me. And that was my entire childhood. People would stop me on the street and in broken English say, "What are you doing here?" And I would respond in Albanian, "I've lived here all my life." And they go, like this. Nobody moves to Albania. And so I look very different, but they all assume that I have a very different life story from theirs, which in some aspects I do. But then I moved to my passport country, and nobody asks me the question, "What are you doing here?" No, I want to explain. Like, I've grown up overseas. Like, I have a totally different story. Let me share my story. No, because I look the same. I had one friend that I was friends with, very close friends with, for about 6 months. And we sat next to each other in art class. And 6 months into the school year, she goes, "No way. You grew up in Albania?" And I go, "Yeah, did I forget to tell you?" And she was like, "No, man, I did not know that. You're so normal." Compliment, I guess. So yeah, does this explain? So this means that when somebody asks me where is home, nobody in that environment treats me like I'm at home. But I more feel at home. I go to this environment and it feels very different from home, but everybody treats me like I'm home, right? And some of these things will change based on the kid's experience. Sometimes you look different in both. And so then the answers to the questions, or even the questions that people are asking them themselves, can be different in the host country and the passport country. Yeah. So there's not just this, but it's like, okay, World Cup comes around, right? And I grew up, let's say, I grew up in Italy, and then I moved to Brazil for a while, and then I have lived, but the past 5 years have been in my host country, France, right? So who am I rooting for?
Yeah.
Yes. Where is my passion for all three of them? I don't know. So you see, sometimes it gets down into the nitty gritty of like, I'm totally lost on who I am. And sometimes it's just casual stuff like that you're like, I can't relate to these people around me who are all so patriotic and loving their country, and it's just, I don't feel the same way. And I feel awkward, so I'll cheer, but yeah. Okay. Does that make sense why that would cause, growing up between countries, cultures would cause an identity conundrum, if not crisis? Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to dive into that as much as I was planning. Oh, it's already been 15 minutes, guys. I'm so sorry.
Keep going.
Has this been happening at other map talks too?
They're shorter than people are used to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will go a little bit faster then and skip. I will say though that when you put TCKs together, you'll find that there is a reunion of strangers. So all these people, doesn't matter how many schools they went to, how many countries they lived in, whether they were homeschooled, went to a private Christian school, or they went to the public local school. It doesn't matter whether their parents are from multiple backgrounds, what their parents' job was. You put TCKs together, and there's another culture of camaraderie that happens there. Because we understand, finally, you understand me. It doesn't matter that none of the countries sync up. It doesn't matter that we're barely speaking the same language because you just happen to know some English and I just happen to learn a little bit of French in school. Because we have a similar crisis and we can share that crisis together.
I remember how totally relieved I was when I first encountered the term TCK. It's like, finally, there's a group even though we're very diverse, we still share.
Well, there's a name for this condition.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. TCKs really appreciate being around other TCKs. So if you know one, see if you can connect them to another one. Even if it's just a 10-minute conversation of covering all the places they've been and the weirdest food they've had, that's still, it's an interaction they don't always get, especially in their passport country. Okay, benefits and challenges. I'm going to sit down for this one. The benefits and challenges of being a third culture kid are often two sides of the same coin on a lot of aspects. So on one hand, TCKs often have an expanded worldview. They've seen lots of different cultures. Their parents have taught them about other cultures as well, because their parents have a expanded worldview. But at the same time, then there's confused loyalty. They have a 3D view of the world. I've seen poverty, and you do see poverty in the States. You sometimes have to go looking for it to see it, but at the same time, like the kid prostitutes that are by the side of the street. Most American teenagers in Montana have not been in an environment like that. So it's also a painful view of reality. It's a fuller view, but it's more painful. Cross-cultural enrichment, yes, but also home or passport cultural ignorance. That everybody else knows right up to you now, the number of times. Wait, you don't know? Don't do that to a TCK. Cultural chameleon, adjust. So even me just chatting with you right now, if I didn't tell you about Albania, I'm an American. I look and sound like an American. I can be an American. If I go to Albania, then still, I look like an American, but I adjust my language, my hand gestures get bigger, like everything adjusts to this new culture. And I noticed that when I traveled to Thailand or the Middle East, a few countries there, then I was adjusting to them and they were reacting to my adjustment. Wait, you were just very hospitable. That's not like an American teenager. What happened? What's different about you? But on the other hand, identity. If you're morphing to every single thing you find, then you end up landing. I wrote a poem once in high school, very dramatic. What part of me is simply me and not just a mimicry? So another part of the identity. Embracing life and relationships. You give TCKs a week to make friends, they will dive deep. Like, we only have a week. We're used to our friends just disappearing after a month because their dad received a death threat, which happened to me in 8th grade. They just disappear, and then they appear, and we don't know how long they're going to be here, and then they disappear again. So they make use of time to build those relationships. But on the other hand, sometimes they can withdraw. the kids, like military brats especially, 2 years in each place, no, I'm not going to dive deep into a relationship. I'm only going to be here for another year and a half. It's not worth it. It's not worth the pain. If I dive deep, it'll hurt more on the end. Sorry, I'll pick up the pace of it. Maturity, TCKs tend to be more mature than their age, just because of their exposure to experiences and needing to adapt. I mean, that's biblical. Bible says, like, the perseverance produces faith, produces trust, all of these things that come from points of pain. And TCKs experience usually more pain than the average kid. But sometimes it produces arrogance. Sometimes it's real, like, oh my goodness, I had a very negative view of American teenagers. They sleep around, they drink, and they don't know anything about the world. And I showed up, and it was partially true. It was. But there was also a lot of knowledge there, and I was not seeing the people by meeting them and actually getting to know them. It's also perceived arrogance, because when I transitioned and I talked about Albania all the time, everybody, eventually their eyes glazed over. Okay, yeah, I was just talking about Albania. Wow, you're so exotic. Yeah, cool. This is legitimately the only experience I have to share. So real and perceived arrogance. Another quote from this girl, Erica. Erica wondered how it could be that life felt like such a rich dance in and through so many cultures, while at the same time that very richness made it seem impossible to stop the dance. I could go into a lot on that one, but I'm just going to talk briefly about transition and caring for TCKs. I wanted to give you clearly a brief insight into what it's like to be a TCK and the lack of belonging and understanding of home and a community that you actually feel like you're meant to be a part of that understands you. But the reason I wanted to give that is because it also tells you a little bit about how to care for them. So if you have a TCK in your life, you likely do. Even if it is a CCK, you know, a refugee kid, an international student, somebody that has grown up between different cultural worlds, or they're home, like they're at home, they have a very Hispanic culture, and then they go to school and it's very Americanized culture. Those people, the biggest thing you can do is ask questions and actually care to hear the answer, and then continue asking questions. And so for example, somebody caring enough to go all the way down deep into the complications of my life, that to me is a huge gesture of intentionality and care. A lot of people, it's not that big of a deal if they share where they're from or not. But for me, that's, well, for a lot of TCKs, it ends up being like, oh, this is a place where it's okay for me to talk about this. This is a place where they actually are curious about what has made me me. So continue asking those questions. And also, if they ever bring up stories about their experiences, respond to them. Like, don't just like, oh yeah, nice, and keep going. If you ever get the opportunity to have a TCK open up to you in that way, I'm only just relearning how to do it because I shut off all memories of Albania and my upbringing because it was of no use to me socially. And when I stopped talking about it, I also stopped thinking about it. And God is really tugging on me, saying, I gave you a gift. Now you're ignoring it. I want you to re-engage with it. So this is part of that story. Transitions. If you do have TCKs, you're a missionary. Is anybody here a worker overseas? No? Okay. Going to be?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let your kids know when a transition is going to happen. A lot of people have asked, like, when is the best time to share? And some parents' tactics are like 2 weeks before you're moving, because then they won't like feel the weight of it for a whole year while they're waiting for it to happen, and that just doesn't help. leaving right is key to entering right is the quote. So there's an acronym called RAFT that really helps with transitions. Even, have you come across it?
Yeah.
Yeah, even leaving passport country to go to host country is really helpful. It's reconciliation, affirmation, farewells, and think destination. All of these things, you could probably Google RAFT and find like a document fairly easily. A lot of the things I'm talking about are in here, and then I'm throwing in my own anecdotes to validate it. So that I'll point out, if they haven't learned yet that they're a TCK, I've started doing this, like find the TCK, tell them what it is, send them a Wikipedia page, and have them just enjoy the fact that they are a TCK. I didn't learn it until I was 17, and I was like, oh my word, that is true of me, and that's true of me, and also that. So sometimes it's fun to just like, oh, did you know that you're a TCK? What's that? Like, oh, you're a third culture kid. It's this whole group of people around the world. I think there's a study that came out recently that most of the CEOs of the world are TCKs, like have grown up between two different cultures, just because you can communicate across cultural bounds so much more easily because you grew up having to adjust around other people. So yes, yes, and thinking about transitions. Yeah, just engaging with what they have is really important. Engaging with what they've had, writing a letter to give to their favorite teacher, their best friend, a gift to kind of feel like it's a conclusion to something, and then letting go of things is important. You just kind of have to. You're moving across the world after 14 years of life with one suitcase. So letting go of things is important, but also like have them bring like a knick-knack. I didn't bring it with me today, but I have this little frame that has a stamp on it from Togo. It's a longer story, but I've carried that with me to every country I've ever been to. That is my special memento. And that to me is like bringing a little bit of home with me everywhere I go. Even though there's no continuity between these homes, there is this one piece that still is a part of my heart and shows up in each of those homes. So I would encourage that. Do any of you do member care for organizations?
I have, and continue to do.
Okay, yeah. Have you worked with TCKs in member care?
Yeah, I used to teach in MK school.
Oh, nice, yeah. Where blessings on you for your contribution.
In South America.
Oh, nice, yeah. Yeah, I was just going to emphasize to whoever came that was a part of an organization that investing in the TCKs and caring for them, that's often the number one reason. It's either number one or number two that workers come off of the field is because there's something going on with their kids. So prioritizing TCK care is huge. Also, they are the most likely to end up becoming workers later on in life. They have the equipment, grew up watching the ministry, and that doesn't mean that TCKs like they have to go overseas, have to be missionaries, but they are going to be your best long-term recruits coming back. So really investing in them is important. The last thing I'm going to do, oh heavens, I'm so sorry. Last thing I'm going to do is one quick poem. It's called Uniquely Me by Alex Graham Jones. I am a confusion of cultures, uniquely me. I think this is good because I can understand the traveler, sojourner, foreigner, the homesickness that comes. I think this is also bad because I cannot be understood by the person who has sown and grown in one place. They know not the real meaning of homesickness that hits me now and then. Sometimes I despair of understanding them. I am an island and a United Nations. Who can recognize either in me but God? And that's it.
I have a question. And maybe Linda would be chiming in too, but to what extent are some of the characteristics of TCKs, do they continue throughout life into adulthood? Are they And I can certainly see that some characteristics might be forever there, but I had 2 kids and they would kind of say that. But the discomfort that you described in your early years of going back to Montana, those, my kids seem to have learned how to weather those things, or to, maybe it's put on the back.
Yeah.
And they did it quite well.
Yeah.
I was shocked when they told me.
Do you want to share?
It's okay.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I've been living in the States now for about 5 years. I'm getting my degree and then moving into a full-time job. And when I had to make the decision about moving from Portland, Oregon to Washington, D.C. for a job, I really didn't want to do it because Portland had kind of, oh, I'm going to tear up. Portland had kind of become a home.
Yeah, at last.
Finally, yeah. Because when I moved to the States, I was fine with it. I was really good about like pushing emotions to the side. That made it rough. But when I left Albania and made ties, heart ties to Montana, Albania was no longer home. But Montana definitely wasn't home. Did not feel like home. So then the decision to go back to Albania for another 2 years is like some of the most, I call that my flatline years. Like I just felt nothing, did nothing, just like it didn't feel like home anymore. So finally connecting with Portland and feeling like I had found a good community and I loved my church. And God said, no, I actually want you to go into that ministry position at Rock the World. And I said, yes, but if I move now, will I ever stop? Will it ever stop being this dance? And part of me doesn't want it to stop. Part of me is like, my kids better grow up overseas too, because I want them to know me, and I know the gifts that I'll be giving them. Like, part of me really does want that. But also, and that could mean maybe God is going to send me to a country, Togo, and I'll be there for 40 years, and then I'll understand a little bit more about setting the roots and having a community, but still, I'm going to look very different from people in Togo. It's in West Africa. Yeah. I'm going to look very different, so I'm going to go back and choose to go back to a situation where I look different from everybody else. So my answer is I don't know. I just know that I still haven't gotten all the way through it. I have gotten much better at connecting with people that do not share my life experience, and feeling and communicating my life experience so that they can care for me. But yeah, I'm afraid we are like now way over time.
Just kind of my own question. Yeah. My son, when he was trying to find a college to go to, we live in the middle of the country, and he wanted to go to a Big Ten school. And I started looking at the cost, and I just didn't know if we could afford things. Everything but Northwestern and U of I, or University of Illinois, were outside of the state. Yeah. And so he finally decided on the most expensive uppity school. It was Northwestern. And I said, would you consider going to a community college for the first 2 years, getting a lot of your basic stuff, and then transferring into Northwestern? And he looked at me and he said, I'll cheer up. And he said, Dad, I just want to start something and end it. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it became abundantly clear. And I just said, okay, we'll sacrifice what it takes. And he flourished. In a secular environment, there was a revival on campus through university. He would have missed out on all that if I hadn't affirmed him to do that. But I still think that what you're talking about, transitions even as an adult, it kind of both instills excitement, but it also causes you to kind of peel away some of those painful scars that you have partially healed, mostly.
Yeah.
So it's both the down and the up, as you so capably should.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks you guys for listening. pleased that you care for me. Yeah, if you have any other questions, I didn't get very much time for questions. So I'm just going to move over into the other room if anybody wants to chat.